The early 70s have been described as the hangover after the swinging 60s. Unemployment was up, economic growth was down. The London underworld had been looking at the Lloyds Bank for some time. They knew there were lots of high-value items in this subterranean vault they would have loved to get at.
The Lloyds Bank in Baker Street is probably one of the most secure banks in England, let alone London.
So this is like the Fort Knox of banks. It's almost guaranteed that any kind of bank robbery will be foiled before they can even get to the vault door.
However, there was one criminal mastermind who decided that he was up for the challenge.
Well, Anthony Gavin, on the surface, looks a fairly ordinary kind of bloke, rather than a serious criminal.
He'd had training in the Royal Fusiliers in the British Army. We know that he was therefore disciplined, intelligent, and he knew the importance of teamwork.
Gavin's Holmes-inspired plan isn't simple. He needs to map a tunnel path to a spot precisely below the vault. He needs experts with the right know-how to dig the tunnel. He needs someone smart enough to disable the series of sophisticated alarms. What he needs is a team. His first hire, someone to pose as a customer while getting precise details on the vault. He chooses Reginald Tucker.
Reginald Tucker is somebody who the police don't know anything about, and that makes him ideal for Anthony Gavin.
He goes into Lloyds Bank, bold as brass, and he opens an account with a fake name, G. Edwards, depositing £500 and dressed to the nines as if he's a high member of British society. He opens the account with no questions asked.
Next up is a trusted friend, Nicky Gervais, aka Skinny. He's worked with Gavin on smaller jobs before, but he's a highly skilled alarm specialist. Gavin assigns Gervais a critical task, figuring out how to get past the tremor alarms so the team can breach the vault. If the 5 men manage to get inside, they'll need someone on the outside to watch their backs. The final member of Gavin's team is the lookout, Bobby Mills. With the team in place, Reginald Tucker gathers the details on the vault, but Gavin still needs to find a starting point for his tunnel.
Anthony Gavin chose that bank because he knew there are many businesses opening and closing in the area, and a short time later, a business closes just 2 doors away from the bank. It's called Le Sac, and the gang moves in.
The advantage of Le Sac is it has a basement, and that basement is in direct line with the vault 2 doors up.
They need to have somebody to take out the lease on the building and lease this building legitimately. So Gavin enlists a silent partner. This is somebody that nobody in the team other than Gavin knows.
The basement of Le Sac's is 40 feet away from the vault underneath Lloyds Bank. So this is going to be an incredible feat of engineering.
After 9 weeks of dangerous work, the team thinks they're just below the vault. It's all set. The team will have from Friday at 5 p.m. until 10 a.m. Monday, when the vault doors time lock will disengage. They'll have an entire weekend to get rich. The following weekend, 5 of the crew members enter the shop, making their way into the tunnel. Lookout Bobby Mills keeps watch from a rooftop above.
He has a walkie-talkie to talk to them, and he is keeping an eye on everyone coming and going. And the word comes over the walkie-talkies from the lookout, there's no one around, go.
The heist is on. All that stands between the crew and the richest vault in England is 2 feet of steel-reinforced concrete.
It may seem a bit dramatic, but they thought, well, this is the only way we're going to get through is to blow a hole through the floor.
Using explosives in a tunnel is a great way to kill yourself.
They retreat down the tunnel to what they hope will be a safe distance.
They've got the lookout on the building, and he's watching out.
So it becomes a question. Are they gonna blow themselves up, or are they gonna bury themselves alive?
So they've done it, finally done it. And there's this heart-stopping moment, this moment of elation that all the work they've finally got in this place. They know no one else could do this.
Through the haze from the explosion, the Baker Street burglars get their first glimpse inside. 1,000 safe deposit boxes holding millions in loot.
Once the gang are inside the vault, it should be plain sailing. But it isn't. And the vault, which is a relatively small room and of course completely airtight, is filled with the choking rubble and fumes of the explosion they just used to blast their way in. And they have a decision to make. Do they stay and take what they can in those conditions, or do they leave, get some fresh air, get some rest, and then come back calmly a few hours later to do a much more professional job?
Gavin calls lookout Bobby Mills on the walkie-talkie to discuss the change in plans. What Gavin and the crew don't know is that an amateur radio enthusiast has tuned in.
Robert Rowland is convinced he's listening in on a raid taking place.
We then hear this incredible exchange of words as they negotiate what they're going to do next.
Look, the place is filled with fumes where we was cutting, and if the security come in and smell the fumes, we're all going to take stoppo and none of us have got nothing. Whereas this way, we've all got 300 grand to cut up. And when we come back in tomorrow, security have nosed it up for us, well, at least we've got something. Well, they joined. They all say that you should stay there. Over.
He has the team's transmissions captured on tape and calls Scotland Yard.
They send a couple of police officers round to see Robert Rowland, and he then plays them some recording, and they begin to see that what his point is, that there appears to be a robbery going on somewhere.
The robbery is underway. They only have hours in order to catch them red-handed. So the police officers call the bank managers of each bank. They open up, they take a look, and then they move on. Eventually, they actually go to Lloyd's Bank.
They're in the vault, and then the lookout says the old bill are outside. That's the police.
Can you imagine? They're surrounded by jewels and money and unknown riches, and the police are right at the front door.
The police is being let in by the manager, and the manager is letting through so they can get down into the vault. They're all quiet, not making a sound. You could probably hear their hearts beating as they're waiting to see what happens. The police look at each other. There's no sign of any break-in. As far as they know, they don't realise that someone's got in through the floor.
The bank manager and the police leave, and they move on to the next bank to check that one.
So the lookout says, "You're all clear, boys." So they now get on with the really crucial stuff, which is emptying the safety deposit boxes.
After 30 hours in the vault, the gang is ready to make their escape. It's Monday morning, and bank employees arrive for work at 10 a.m. sharp. The same Lloyd's bank manager who reported no problems the day before makes his way to the vault.
The bank manager and his deputy go down into the basement, down into the safety vault, and they stand outside the time lock, wait for it to come to the point where they can open it, and click. And of course, they phone the police.
As that happens, people who had safety deposit boxes in the vault start talking to the police, and the police begin to learn how much was stolen. The number goes up and up and up by millions.
After the Baker Street burglars make off with millions, Scotland Yard detectives question Benjamin Wolfe, the silent partner who made Gavin's impossible scheme possible.
And at no moment did he give up the gang. He was the perfect accomplice.
But they put him under surveillance. And that gives them some clues as to the people that he is in contact with.
And they start to learn who he knows, and the same names keep coming up.
One of those names is Anthony Gavin, whose voice sounds an awful lot like the walkie-talkie operator in Lesac.
Before we come out, we'll arrange a meeting place for you so that we can go where we're going to go. Sorry about last night, mate.
Within weeks of the heist, Scotland Yard seems to know who the ringleader is.
This wasn't police incompetence, this was police corruption. And some individuals had a lot to gain by covering up the robbery.
But not everyone associated with the Baker Street job escapes the consequences. In late October, 7 weeks after the heist, the ringleader Anthony Gavin and Reginald Tucker, the inside man, are arrested. Both plead guilty and are sentenced to 12 years in prison. And one of the biggest ironies of all, Mickey Gervais, the man hired to avoid the seismic sensor alarms, avoids arrest.
He disappeared about 10 years after he'd been involved with the Baker Street robbery, and no one has ever seen him since.
Mystery that continues to surround this case allows multiple conspiracy theories. Is this about protecting the royal family? Is this police corruption of the highest order? All of the documentation around the investigation is held in the National Archives. It's heavily redacted. We don't really understand exactly what happened. Now, these documents are under embargo for 100 years. They won't be released until at least 2071. What's being covered up? Why is this still a national secret?